All right, Shabbat shalom, everybody. It's a good day today.
It's a good day.
And it's Shabbat, and it's raining. So rain is a blessing. So how much?
Over 2.5.
Over 2.5 inches so far. That's
Here.
Our land needs it here in the Panhandle. So I just wanted to let everybody know I got a phone call from Al. He's listening right now, and he's actually typing into the chat, but no one's seeing. They're suppressing his chat. We don't know why. It's kind of like a repeat of what happened before. So Al is with us. He just is not able to connect with us. Is it a Canadian? No, Connie's online. Connie's with. So yeah, it's just a YouTube thing. So Al is with us, and then he called me just a few minutes ago. So and he wanted us to pray. He told me what's going on, and he and Irene had gone through the house there, and they found some stuff, some books and stuff that were bad. They needed to get rid of. Some other lady brought them into the house. They didn't realize they were there. And when they were doing this house cleaning, everybody needs to do spiritual house cleaning, right? And get rid of stuff like that might show up. They got rid of it doing this house cleaning, and they've been physically attacked. And we're talking physically. Al told me that he's hurting in his ribs and his chest area. And Irene was attacked in her foot. She feels like her foot is almost broken or something.
And
but
we have authority over that.
Demonic things. So we're going to pray. Yeah. So we need to pray for them as we get started. So, Sandi, do you want to?
Did they repent, renounce, replace when they did it and all of that?
I don't know. So Al, I know you're listening. So just make sure you go through that process well in terms of getting. I know you know this already, but to repent,
even
renounce,
though you didn't know, just
repent, renounce, replace, get rid of the stuff, and repent for even if you didn't even know that you had them. Just repenting for having them in the house, renouncing the connection of the house, and then replacing it, filling the place with the Spirit of the living God, and praise and worship. So. All right.
So, Father, we come before you right now, and we thank you and we praise you that you are sovereign and that you are great and you are worthy to be praised. And we thank you that you've given us authority, Father, to trample down those things that have risen their ugly head, that you brought forth deliverance, that Yeshua himself, the very first miracle he did in the synagogue was deliverance. And Father, we thank you for that. We thank you that you've given us wisdom to not only spiritually look inside our lives, but even physically in our homes to see what things could be connected where the enemy has crept in to have a stronghold within us. And Father, I pray for Al and Irene, and I thank you for them. And I pray that you give them wisdom, supernatural wisdom right now in the name of Yeshua, that within them you would show them if there's any residue or anything else that's left behind. And Father, I pray right now that as you do that, as you bring revelation to them, also bring up revelation how things have connected or even affected them, not what's the new stuff that's going on, but even the stuff in their lives that has been happening even before that. Father, give them revelation on that. And Father, right now, and Al, and you guys, you say this with me, if you want, if you can, it never hurts us to say it. So you guys repeat after me. Father, I come to you in the name of Yeshua.
Father, I come to you in the name of Yeshua.
And I thank you that you've given me wisdom.
I think you've given me wisdom.
I repent
from
not doing a spiritual house cleaning. Sooner. And allowing this stuff to be in my home. I renounce any involvement in the occult or other things of the enemy. And I command in the name of Yeshua, that every door be closed in my life. In my home. And that you would rise up. Within me. To walk your path. And replace those things. With your spirit. Fill me with your spirit. I command right now that these things
cease
and desist
and desist
from attacking me and those in my home.
and those in my home.
I command
I command
that spirit of torment
the spirit of torment
be bound
bound
and leave right now in the name of Yeshua.
and leave right now in the name of Yeshua.
I command the spirit of infirmity
I command the spirit of infirmity
to be bound. Clean up your mess. And leave my life and those in my home. Father, bring me, and I also command that the family and the dynasty that comes with those spirits be gone in the name of Yeshua. Fill my home and my life with your presence and your spirit. In the name of Yeshua. Amen.
And Father, we just thank you for your work that's being done. And I just pray specifically for Al and Irene that you just manifest your healing. Heal Al in his chest and his ribs and that which was physically attacked.
We command it to be so.
For Irene in her foot, and just mend and make whole, and all that has been afflicted upon them it ceases its ministry, as Pastor Sandy was praying, but also, Father, that the fullness of your healing come and be restored just as quickly as the enemy attacked them physically. So bring an immediate, suddenly, to be restored in the name of Yeshua.
And I also want to encourage you, go ahead and go through your home. And we all need to do this. If people have been in our home, or if life has been in our home, even our own family, we need to go ahead and anoint every door and every window and everything. But also walk the ground around your home. In fact, I encourage you to not only walk it, we've done that and blown the shofar at the same time as you walk the ground around your home.
I've walked the ground around the school.
And that's good. And then I also encourage you, put scriptures around the four corners of your property.
Stake it.
I put it on popsicle sticks, or, those little sticks. I put them in the ground and do that. Yeah, let me see what else. So I know this isn't the Torah portion, but actually, in a way, it is talking about that, because we're talking about Noach and Babel and the Tower of Babel the second week, and all those things that are connected with it. And it has to do with that demonic and those curses and becoming Nephilim, becoming like that, and things like that. So in a way, it is right. It's the same thing.
It's all related. Yeah.
So guys, I know we've talked about it, and we're not going to belabor this any longer, but we need to do house cleaning, especially when we need to go through our home. We need to check it out and take care of business.
This week's Torah portion. So again, Noah, part 2, Genesis chapter 10. Okay. And we're gonna hit several different ideas and thoughts through this process, but can someone read chapter 10 for us? I know there's a bunch of names. Do your best, but I think it's important that we catch the family lineage. Don't everybody jump in there real quick all at the same time. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Here is the genealogy of the sons of Noah. Shem, Ham, Yafet. Sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Yafet were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Raphat, and Togarmah. The sons of Yavan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these, the islands of the nations were divided into their lands, each according to its language, according to their families and their nations. The sons of Ham were Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush were Sabah, Havilah, Savata, Ramah, and Savtakah. The sons of Ramah were Shabbat and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod, who was the first powerful ruler on earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yehovah. This is why people say, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before Yehovah. His kingdom began with Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Asher went out from the land and built Nineveh. Nineveh, the city Rechavat, Kelat, and Racine, between Nineveh and Kelat. That one is a great city. Mitzrayim fathered the Ludim and the Anamim and the Levamim and the Nephtukim and the Patrasim and Caslushim, from whom came the Philistines, and the Caphtorim. Kenan fathered Zidon, his firstborn, Het, and Yavusi and Imri and Gergashi, and the Hivi, and the Archi, and the Sinai, and the Arvadi, and the Tasmari, and the Hamati. Afterwards, the families of Kenan were dispersed. The border of Kenan was from Zidon as you go toward Gerar, and Azah as you go towards Sodom, and Gomorrah, Adam and Zovoim to Lisha. These were the descendants of Ham, according to their families, languages, in their lands, and in their nations.
Okay, let's pause right there for a second. Okay, so in the verses 15 through 20, if you notice, those families are the ones that settled in the land of Israel. Which, did that land belong to them? The answer would be no, that's not their land, but that's the land that they moved into. And the other interesting thing is it explains where the territory is, which is from southern Lebanon as far as Gaza. So that is that whole area of the mountains and the coastline, from Assyria to the sea, is basically that section that those people are in. I wanted to, so we're gonna pick up there, but since there's so many different names, I don't want to get lost in the names of some of the things that we need to focus on. Some of the things we've focused on in the past are, it's worth bringing back up again, and then also hit on some new points as well, because sometimes we get people that join us online that they haven't heard any of this stuff. It's like totally foreign to them. And so I want to bring in the old and bring in the new in terms of the teachings, and we call them older teachings versus newer teachings. But in the genealogy of Noah and the sons of Japheth, has anybody ever gone out and studied the names and what their names mean? Yeah? Sandy's done it in the past?
I've taught it before.
Okay. And so I want us to go over these just real quickly, and just so you can kind of get this, but there's some interesting things in the names that I wanted to bring out. First off, Japheth means opened expansion. Now, when you think of Japheth and where he settled, we really don't know the exact landing point of where Noah's Ark was. They have found what looks like evidence of the ship landing in the mountains of what they call Ararat, which is in Turkey today. And then from there, the families went out and they started to settle the land, right? I wish I could put up an image there so you could see. Maps kind of help us when it comes to talking about, because every one of these names, as you know, are names of regions. And those regions have a prophetic meaning. They tell us when it says things in the book of Revelation or in other prophetic books, it gives these ancient names. But if we don't know where those ancient names and those families settled, we really don't know where the connection is, right? And so Japheth, isn't it interesting? It means opened expansion. And if you go north of the mountains of Ararat and you start heading into the great expanse of the north around the Black Sea, there's mountainous areas, but there's a lot of prairies. and there's a lot of plains, and it's a great open expanse. And if you think of just the mountain regions and the valleys, I mean, it's like no man's land up that direction. It's also the area, by the way, after the exile of the northern kingdom, when they were set free from Assyria, according to Esdras 2, one of the things that we learned is that they chose not to go back to the land. Oh, okay, just remember that was a microphone right there, Jackie.
What?
There's a microphone right there.
Sorry for interrupting y'all.
So they said we would not return to Israel after the 490 years, that they would, after the time of the exile, that they would not return. You know where they said they were going to go? We're going to cross the river and expanded north. So the northern 10 tribes expanded north into the areas of Japheth. And which, if you follow the migration patterns, you'll find the migration patterns taking them north. So think about where, man, if I could just figure, and I don't even have a board to use, sorry. But if you think of modern day Iraq, okay, and does everybody know kind of the area of where Nineveh was, Iraq, Eastern Syria, kind of that area? Do you know your maps? You should know your maps. This is very important. And you might have maps in your Bible.
I have a huge
Go get a big map for everybody.
I homeschool, remember?
Yeah. Okay. And so when you think about the river Euphrates and the Tigris, and they're right in the area of Iraq, modern day Iraq. They flow out of Turkey and Syria, modern day Syria, and some of that region. They come down together, and then they flow down to the Persian Gulf. This is the whole place that we fought battles over, because apparently the Iraqis had something to do with bringing down the towers, even though they're all Arabs and Saudi Arabians that brought down the towers. But nevertheless, we had to go to Iraq, right, Brenda? And so, in keeping with that line, that was also the region by where the northern kingdom was taken to captivity. They chose not to cross the river and head back, or they chose not to stay on the western side of the Euphrates and the Tigris. They chose to cross over.
By the way, we
And
had
go further.
problems with Iraq before the towers.
We did, you know.
I was there
Before the towers, right? Yes, that is so true. And so we keep that in mind. They went north. Where did they go? They went into the land of Japheth and beyond.
Nineveh's kind of out there by itself, isn't it?
Nineveh would be
an area
in
where it's by itself.
eastern Syria today. So
Yes.
east of Damascus, and here comes Sandi with the map.
No, but
So yeah. So if you can see this, Israel's here, and here's Syria, and the Euphrates River is running right through here. I don't know if you guys online can see it. Sandi, move the screen so then I can't see it. So there's the Euphrates and there's the Tigris, and they were in exile over here, and they crossed, and they started their expansion, and they went north into the areas of Turkey, and up over here by the Caspian Sea, between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, which is the Caucasus Mountains, you know, where we get the name Caucasian from. And the Armenia is right through here. Armenians used to cover this whole area, it's Aramaic, by which much one of the early translations from Hebrew went into Aramaic. It's the Armenians that have maintained and preserved the Aramaic language, and they're all in this area. The Turks, the Ottoman Empire, were the ones that exterminate, genocide 250,000 Armenians out of Turkey. They fled. Many came. You know why we have a lot of Turks in America, more specifically like Florida and California, is because they left Turkey. They fled Turkey because of the great persecution. They had to give up their guns first, and then the second thing, then the Ottomans started to kill them, genocide. So anyway, this is the area consider the area of Japheth. This whole area going up through here, once you get out of the Caucasus and you start, of course, you get into southern Russia and Ukraine, it's plains. There's hills and stuff, but it's great farmland and the great expanse. And so I thought that was very interesting for those
Yeah, that's a good
that are
map
watching.
for-
Now, there's a test.
Uh-oh.
So
Give it here.
Japheth
I was
is
here.
called, his name means opened expansion. Gomer is complete. Ashkenaz. Oh, I need to see that map again.
She's showing us where she was.
And if I
Okay.
was going over there, I'd make sure Brenda's with me.
Okay, so can you see that? Okay, so Ashkenaz is this area right through here. Look where it's at. It's in modern day Turkey. Now, don't we know something about the Ashkenazi Jews? All right, so there is a myth that's going around that says that Ashkenazi Jews are connected to the Khazar Empire. The Khazar, and they call it the 13th tribe because it was that Khazar Empire that don't draw the correlation. They're not the same. So the Khazar Empire
Russia?
was up here,
Yeah.
and the Khazar Empire ended up adopting Judaism, but ultimately the Khazar Empire fell to the wayside, and they were dispersed among the nations. The Khazars and the Ashkenazi are not the same people, because how did the Ashkenazi Jews get that name? The academics agree with this, and so the historians agree with this. When Judah went into exile over into Babylon, which is this area right here, when they went into exile, they were there 70 years, right? Some of them returned back to the land. Some of them, a lot of them, stayed in Babylon. Many of them began to immigrate, and they started to go this direction, and they crossed over this isthmus over at where Istanbul is today. Constantinople is what it used to be, and moved up on the eastern or the western side of the Black Sea into Eastern Europe, Romania, Bulgaria, which would go into Hungary. Ultimately, they were traveling. They're traveling and moving and expanding over into Germany. Germany is modern day is the modern name for Gomer. So this is the pathway. All along there were settlements. Those settlements became a trade route. So the people in the settlement and this trade route area were known as the Ashkenaz because that's where they lived. That's how they became the traders, the ones who were carrying the merchants and carrying the caravans of goods from Persia into Europe went through Ashkenaz. And who maintained that trade route? It was the Jews that came out of Babylon. That's why they're called the Ashkenazi Jews. So there's a myth that keeps saying that the Jews that are not Jews, because these are the Ashkenazi Jews that are in Europe. It's a myth. It's a myth. It's been debunked because the Khazarian Empire, where they're trying to connect the dots and say that's where they came from. Maybe there's some converted Jews that are all part of. They ended up settling in Europe and Eastern Europe. Maybe there's some of them, but the base of the Ashkenazi Jews are from the tribe of Judah. It's not a 13th tribe. And perhaps these Khazars that were dispersed when the kingdom fell, then perhaps they maybe joined up and became part of the communities of the Yahudim, or the Jewish, or the tribe of Judah.
Would you mind spelling Ashkenazi? A-S-H. What?
A-S-H.
A-S-H.
K-E-N.
K-E-N. A-Z-I. If you don't know, ask. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay. So, all right. I just thought that was an interesting point, considering we're talking about Japheth, and in the lands of Japheth, Judah settled. Not all Judah went back to Israel, but then keep in mind, in 70 AD, Judah was dispersed again, those that were in the land, and much of Judah was dispersed. And where were they dispersed? They went down into northern Africa, all the way to Morocco. The Romans took them everywhere. They took them
Yes,
up
they're
over
all
to
over there.
Rome. They took them up into Europe. They took them to Spain. They spread out another direction. So Yehuda, Judah, is really spread out just as much as the northern 10 tribes that were part of that. Anyway,
It's interesting that I had found out a few years ago my mother's maiden name is an Ashkenazi Jewish surname.
Ooh.
interesting.
And then when her middle brother did the DNA test, I think it was 15% of Iberian Peninsula, and I researched that out, and that's where the Sephardic Jews were.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So then the Sephardics, of course, get their name from being over in northern Africa. But don't forget, it was in the in Libya, modern day Libya. What was the ancient empire that's set up there? Somebody in the chat, I'm just might know the ancient empire. They fought the Romans all the time, and ultimately they were defeated. But they were from the northern kingdom. Yeah, because we're very tribe of Judah oriented in the Hebrew roots, and we ought not to be. We should know about all of Joseph that was sent out among the nations. Okay, so all right, thank you, Sandy. You did very well, Sandy
Thank you,
Vanna.
Sandy.
Are you sure you're not going to need it when you do Shem or him or anybody like
Maybe I might.
That's a good map.
that? You know, I have the whole world because we got these
She's
maps.
got the whole world
In
her
Yeah.
hand.
Come on,
So-
girl.
So Sephardic, Tammy put in there, Eddie and Tammy said Sephardic is Hispanic background. So
Yes.
many Hispanics in the name that ends like Gonzalez, Martinez, those type of
The
names.
S,
That
Domingo.
it leaves with
The S.
it ends with a Z is
With the Ed
is a connection to this part. And Joe online says she just said this. Spain was conquered by the Moors from Morocco, which the Moors were the Muslims, and they invaded for several centuries. They moved into Spain, and ultimately Spain, and they started mixing the blood. But ultimately, the Spaniards rose up and kicked the Moors out of Spain and back across the Mediterranean to the other side, or the whatever that isthmus is called, from the rock where the Rock of Gibraltar is, Iberian Peninsula.
That's Iberian Peninsula.
There you go. Yeah, that connection and that little doorway that opens into the Atlantic. So, okay. So Gomer means complete. Ashkenaz means a man as sprinkled, or fire as scattered. Ashkenaz. You don't have to write this down. It's just kind of interesting because I'm not going to say it slow. I want to go through it. Riftha means spoken. Togarma means you will break her. Magog means land of Gog. Madai means middle land. Yawan, I'm going to go back to Magog here in a second. Yawan means Greece. Elisha means El of the coming one. Tarshish means yellow jasper. Kittim means bruisers. Dedonim means leaders. Tubal, you shall be brought. Meshech, drawing out, and Tiras, desire. So what do you got there?
Well, you were talking about Spain.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, lift it up. So Spain is here, and there's that little.
But you go to
connection.
England and then you get all of that.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. So, this now here's another thing that I want to make clear. This is where the Bible scholars get it wrong. The eschatology experts that lean towards a pre-trib rapture, and they get this wrong because they are trying to use the sounding of these names and connecting them with modern areas, like Meshech. Meshech, they say, well, that is Moscow. Well, it's not Moscow. There's no correlation. Meshech, it's in that area of Turkey, I believe. I could be wrong. I think it's still in that area. It is not all the way north into Moscow. Moscow's in the far greater north. Moscow is not listed or given as one of these original names. It's not in these names as a descendant of Japheth settling up there. Now, possibly, yes, there's immigration that ultimately ended up that direction for Japheth, but not in the descendants' names. Moscow is not the same. The etymology, the name origin, is not connected to Moscow. And the same has to go with Magog. We've heard the name Magog. Magog is in that area. If you remember that picture of Turkey was right here, and the Black Sea sits right up above it. Magog is right on the southern side of the Black Sea, kind of in the middle of Turkey. It's that region in the middle area. Magog. Gog of Magog is not two different places. It is a leader of Magog. Yeah, it is a person. So those are just some things to keep in mind, but it's all defined here in the names. Okay, then we go into the sons of Ham. Now, the sons of Ham, it's very interesting because if I remember right, Ramah is a city in southern Gaza.
Yeah.
It's right on the border of Egypt. And his name means horse mane or trembling.
Now, which one is this again?
Ramah.
Ramah.
It's under the sons of Ham.
Okay. I got
So
it.
that's over. It's also in Genesis chapter 10.
Yeah.
We have the name Cush. Cush is a biblical name, prophetic name. Cush means black. Cush means black. So when you look at biblically speaking, the lands of Cush, we're talking about the lands of southern Egypt going south towards Ethiopia, Sudan, kind of that in that area.
I've
Siva.
kind of gotten Africa out too.
You might have to. Okay. Siva is
Get all your maps out and have them ready.
There's like 40.
Ham, by the way, means
A
hot.
prepared woman. Yes, you are.
Ham means hot. Well, think about Ham not being as much as like he's always running a fever. No, Ham, I think of him as that he's driven by his passions. And if you look at his descendants, they are driven by their passions. And we're talking not just in terms of desiring the opposite sex. We're talking passions, fiery passions to push their way. And if you look at where Ham's descendants, many of them ended up, which would have been in the land of Israel, which would have also, we see the connection in the Gaza. And then you see some very interesting connections there. Let's go through these
I
names.
want to go back to Cush for just a moment.
Okay.
Because if you do some study on it, it doesn't necessarily mean like the color of somebody's skin, because when you look at it a little bit more closely, it hints at more of a countenance, one of rage and hatred. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge difference between. I don't see y'all ever parsing us out because of the color of the dirt.
Yeah.
He puts us in categories based on the color of our hearts, so to speak, the countenance that we carry. And so when you look, I've heard lots of people say, well, it's black and that means black. I don't really agree with that at all, because you can be whatever color of dirt that your skin reflects. You can have that black countenance, that rage, that hatred that you carry, that
excellent
bitterness.
Point.
So, I think that we need to look at that a little bit more closely. And I mean, I could take that and go with it, but I know he's got other things planned.
You certainly have a connection because he's the son of Ham, the hot one, right? So definitely connected there. Siva means you drink. Havilah means circle. Savta means, or Savta means striking. Ramah means horse mane trembling. Ramah has two sons. Shiva, which means seven or oath. Sheba is another way we would say it in English. Dedan, low country. And then also of the sons of Cush, Sabtika, striking, and Nimrod. So Ham is Nimrod's grandfather, which means rebellion or the valiant. We also have Mitzrayim, which is Egypt, right? Mitzrayim means double straits. And out of Mitzrayim, we have Ludim, Anamim, Lachabim, Naphtuhim, Pashbarusim, and Kasaluhim, which is double straits, to the firebrands, travailings, afflictions of the waters, flames, openings, regions of the south, fortified. Kesluhim had two sons called Pelishti and Kaphtori. Pelishti is where we get the Philistines from, and which means immigrants. And a Kaphtori means a crown. So
From where now? Where they put Philistines again?
they are from Pelishti,
Palishti.
Pel-ish-ti, and which means immigrants. And if you look at, of course, there is a certain type of behavior that comes out of their name. I mean, their names gives us something, a prophetic outlook of who they, what type of people they are, and type of immigrants. And we know that in the Philistine people, and where they settled, there wasn't their original land. They moved in. The immigrants. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Put means a bow. Canaan means lowland. Canaan. And then I'm going to go through these names. Sidon is hunting. Heth, remember the sons of Heth. Terror. Jebusite, descendants of Yebus. Amorite, a sayer, like one who would be prophetic. A sayer.
Like a seer.
But this would be a sayer. I'm not sure. A sayer. Okay. Girgashite, dwelling on a clay soil, clay dwellers, Girgashite. Hivi, villagers, the dwellers of the high place. Arkite, or from Archi, gnawing. Sinite is thorn or clay. Erudite, Arvadi comes from Arvadi. I will break loose. Tzemarite, double woolens, and Hamathi, hot springs or fortresses. There's something that I see as a connection of all of these, is that they carry the characteristics by their names of that which is anger and heat and violence. And it's like they want to carry this. They do that to maintain power and control. And so they terrorize those that are around them or who come through there in order for them to dominate.
Okay. You said that. I want to then, and I know I'm going to just briefly go there because I'm sure you're going to go there later, but I want to go back then because what I was going to say about Cush fits right in with that, because the Cush has a kof and a sheen. It's 2-letter root. That's what forms it. But many words are formed with that same kuf and sheen that have to do with astrological things and or even astrology. And when you look at astrology, it's one that's given to sorcery and magic. It's a cult, and it devices. And what does that do? The deception and occult practices do? They deceive people and they cause people to stumble. They cause people to stagger. They cause people to go down a path and get lost there, actually. But I think that's why Cush's son, Ham's grandson, Nimrod, is later known for building the Tower of Babel, because Cush, Nimrod, Tower of Babel, because the astrological purpose of the tower was to drive men to passionate frenzy, causing them to stumble and stagger and wander from the Torah, go east. And the Torah is truth. So it seems like this whole genealogical line through him, you have hot-headed, you have temper, you have all of these double woolens, all of these other things that are showing characteristically what that family carried. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And remember, Nimrod became a Nephilim. And it's to cause people to stumble. But then you think of that demonically. So let's go back to what we started with. We were praying for deliverance from, the enemy gets angry when you move his stuff out of his way or move an object or something, and he tries to stay. And that's what was going on with Al when they got rid of those things that they found in their home. And so the enemy is throwing a fit, because what they want to do is cause you to stumble and stagger, be sick and disease, cause you to be hot-headed, all of these things. And they move a kingdom in. It's a kingdom. Demonically, when you bring in hatred or bitterness or rage, it brings in 20 other things that are going to be descriptive adjectives that or for the names that we just heard. Every kingdom, demonic kingdom that sets itself up within us. And remember, it's not possession, it's oppression. When you have addiction, you can look at all sorts of things that are in that family. When you look at rejection, there's a whole bunch of stuff that usually that spirit of rejection, it carries its minions with it, so to speak. But just as we physically see these things in Ham's family, who became as Nephilim, we see that the same demonic kingdom that tries to set itself up within us, that tries to be full of passion and anger and rage and jealousy and offense, and all of this stuff goes together, bitterness, and it's setting itself up to the kingdom. And then look at people today. How many people that you don't know are driven by rage, by anger, by jealousy, always offended. In fact, if you say water, they think you said something offensive. Have you ever been around those people where everything you say and do, they feel offended by it because they cannot see clearly anymore because they're deceived? But we see that these very things in the people today that we saw as the names meaning in Ham's family, and the world is, unfortunately, is driven by that Tower of Babel mentality, still building up a different kingdom and edifice because you call yourself God. You no longer are trying to attain the real Yah. You yourself have become your own little God that is driven by all of these words, because demonic kingdoms have set themselves up within you and you've let it happen or pet it or whatever. And anyway, I just see when we look at the tower, it's to deceive and cause. It has passion. It has. It wants people to stagger away from the truth, and that's what we see in each of these names. And now, ultimately, what happens if we let these things in our family exist from generation to generation? There is a tower that will be built. Maybe it won't be Babel, but it'll be something else. That's a huge stronghold that your family and your generations can't get away from.
That's good.
Without
You gotta cut
Yeshua.
off the root.
Okay, sorry. I had to go there because you said all those key words, and
Yeah, no, it's good. Very good. So why is this important? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I know we all always say, well, we came from Adam and Eve, but actually the ones that are more in the modern deal is we come from Noah's group, Noah's family. But have you ever noticed that even though they all come from this little group right here, all of a sudden it splits off to this one and this one and this one, and they don't get along. And one group is righteous and in God's favor, and the other group, it seems like they are destined to be kind of like the Palestinians, should I say, or like some of those others, even though it just seems to me like they should be traced back, that saying, hey, well, we're the same and we shouldn't be going through this. How did one family split into 15 different
Well, you have to remember
deals?
Abraham too. You've got Esau and those guys that split off as
That's
well.
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You were talking
Yeah,
about
family feuds.
It's like, okay, you're born here and you look different, you're bad and you're good,
I think it has to do.
It's a kingdom against
Joseph.
kingdom.
Yeah, it is a kingdom versus kingdom, and I think ultimately you can probably tie all of these things down to what happened at the Tower of Babel, because when you have a unified people at the Tower of Babel, and then Yah struck them with different languages, then they departed, and the dividing of the languages then divided the people. And even though there's a relationship, then now it's about who has what. Because what do wars start over? Wars are always about our bankers' wars. And so it's about who has what and who has what wealth and who's going to control that wealth.
This group's from Mars and they're from Venus over there and we're from Earth, and it's like they're not even, they don't even think the same way, and they don't, I don't know how to say it. We're just split apart.
Mm-hmm.
Human nature.
Why?
Is
It's under Yeshua, when he comes back, then all of that's going to go back. I think that you're going to find out, well, you know, I'm actually related to that neighbor there. We're related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Joy.
So I just, here's what you said, destiny. That bothers me, because I think that for one thing, John 3:16 says his son died for the whole world. It didn't say just for Israel. It didn't say, so we all have a choice to come to him.
Yes.
And so these people are, like she said, are so blinded by the past or by their genes or their whatever is in them that they cannot see that Yeshua is there for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
I don't think
I
it's
think I forget
destiny. I
that.
think it's just choice.
right.
that's what I'm getting at. I don't like the word destiny
Okay.
because he died for the whole
Well,
world.
some-
Because that gives a thought that one does not have free will.
Right.
It's like our life is predestined. It's the old Calvin mentality, is like some are destined to be saved and some are not destined. And if you're not destined, there's no way. You're just going to go to hell. You're born to go to hell. And that's wrong. It's not. That's not what God did.
That's
Yeah.
not what that's not who my God is anyway.
Right. Right.
Maybe some other God, but not mine.
Yeah.
You have to choose.
And then there's the Mormons.
Okay.
Start adding these things like we're talking, little things like that. I was shocked, totally shocked out of yesterday. And the situation I was just visiting with this girl that was going to go do hair. And I said, well, so what color is your wedding and this and that? She said, the biggest thing is the race. And I said, what? Is it multiracial? No. She said, they're wanting, I'm not white enough, or I'm not black enough, or brown enough. And that was what they were having that whole wedding done around, was how much stuff in your eyes or your face or your, we think of earrings and we think of
Adornments.
but get out there and polish your skin. I mean, now we all do basically one color here, but and hopefully I don't care, but would work out everybody. But that's something that I never thought about, all the people following Jesus down the road, and half of them were a different. I never thought. Of
I love the thought. When I went to Sunday school, we sang a song, red, yellow, black, or white. We are precious in His sight. He loves the little children of the world. And I was like, oh, so we're all. I mean, I always looked at it as we're different colors, but it was a colorblind look. I was like, we're all kids, and He loves us all. So, and why should it be any different? But it's only, it's because of our modern culture, which started under the Clintons, to separate people into groups and then differentiate the differences. And that's what happened. The salad bowl mentality versus the melting pot mentality. And I was raised with the melting pot mentality.
Well, it's a church too for those classes. It's a little girl they had multiple classes, but I always had to make sure that there was a blonde girl to go with all these other girls, because that was, you needed all of them, you know. You needed to love all of them.
Yep.
Well, it's where
Joy.
what part of the country you're from. It's what your roots, your family. Was there was racism in it? There wasn't.
And we have to break out of it. If there was
Yes.
racism in our family, got to break out
So
of it.
who does?
I mean, there
who
was
does-
racism in my family going back about 2-3 generations, because I questioned my mom one time when my great aunt said something about a comment,
Don't say it.
and I won't say it. And I looked at my mom and said, "Did she really say that?" She said, "Don't you say anything." And so, because I wasn't raised that way, and that's the way my parents were.
I'm picturing Bonnie saying that. Joy.
So what I was going to say is I think sometimes, and I'm thinking to Joy, maybe not everybody, but I think that we mix up things about culture and about, maybe we split culture and Christianity or Judaism, because, yes, we are brothers with Judah, and people look at the culture, though. They look at the things that they do, the culture that they've grown up in, and well, that's, I think that we are racist sometimes against culture more than anything. And that does go with color of skin. I don't know what I was trying to say. I had it a minute ago, but I lost it. But do you get what I'm saying? I think that we look at culture and say, well, those people are so different than me.
Well, it's
It has nothing maybe to do with the person as well, because I know that there are Christians out there, all different colors, but
Yeah.
the culture's different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe we need to be more accepting of
When people-
that, or just remember that.
Well, and I think we as Americans think of it this way, and it's that, okay, if you want to come to America, you do it the right way first, do it the right way, and then come be American. You don't come and be your culture and segregate
Condemn America for
and segregate
Right.
yourself within America. That's not America. And if you don't have that attitude, it's like you want to come be part of our nation, then come be part of it. But don't come here to set up
Split.
your nation that in many cases is a failed nation. Don't bring your failed nation concepts and
Yes.
culture to us here. Well, that's our attitude. But if you're going to come here and you're going to do it the right way, and you want to become part of America and raise your kids as Americans and the same, then come on. We want you to do
Learn the
that,
language.
and come meet Yeshua while you're here. I mean, that's my whole
you've got
idea.
people.
Okay, Rick, and then Jackie.
I have a friend that is a trucker, and he was telling me about that he was married before when he was younger, and said he married this girl, met her, fell in love and everything, and said she's Mormon. And said he came home one day and said she was boohooing, crying. And he's like, well, what's the deal? What's the matter? And she said, I'm going to be stuck in this level of hell here because I didn't get married in the tabernacle. And he's like, well, you can go get married in the tabernacle. Well, if you're a Mormon and you're going to go get married in a tabernacle, both of you had to be
He would have to
You'd have to
professed
convert.
Mormon.
Yeah.
convert.
And he told her, he says, I'm not going to spend eternity in hell because you want to get married in a tabernacle. He says, I'm just not going to do it. He says, I don't believe in your false God.
Yeah.
And so, needless to say, they ended up getting the divorce. But
Over religion.
Unequally yoked.
Yeah,
yeah, equally yoked.
that's exactly right.
And the one he's married now, I guess, is more along our lines of thinking. But that goes to show you like where we may have all came out of that family of Noah right there. But look how far apart we are now. They think they're right. We think they're right. We think we're right. And so, we live in a world that's at each other's throat.
Yeah.
Because each one of us is convinced that the other one's wrong. And we need to make it right.
And that's and our anchor and that pivot point is the truth. It's Yeshua, and it's the truth. And that's our responsibility, is to be a light, to bring people to the truth. Because other than that, there's no hope for them. Jackie?
Well, it's false theology is what it is. I mean, and some people are born into that and don't know any different, and then some of them are brought into it, and then some get out of it. But it's like false theology. That's what it amounts to. But what I was going to say a minute ago is, a lot of other nations in that there is a fear with people sometimes. The fear of the unknown will, make people, even that will make people prejudice. That's why we need our Torah. That's why we need our word, because the only way you're going to know the truth of what you said a minute ago about the red and yellow, black and white, God made us all. So we have to get our foundation from who? From Yeshua HaMashiach, which is scripture and his Torah. And, it's a whole Bible, but it's a lot of things that make people the way they are. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a cousin, her daughter was in it and got out of it. And the Mormons do have some good things. They're good about helping people and all that. But it is a cult.
It is. Hey, let's
And
jump
she
in.
realized that. Her daughter realized that, and her husband got out of it.
I want us to jump forward from there, and look at something it's prophetic, that Zechariah kind of brings this whole idea of these descendants of Ham, as it would be said in Hebrew, Ham, and he brings us in. If you'll jump over with me to Zechariah, and see some of the prophetic words, and how in this last year we've had prophecy fulfilled.
Yeah. Which chapter? And
Chapter 9, Zechariah chapter 9, beginning verse 1. So I'm going to read it. And it says, the burden of the word of Yahweh is against the land of Hadrach, with Damascus as its resting place. For the eyes of men, especially of all the tribes of Israel, are toward Yahweh. Verse 2, and Hamath also, which borders on it, Tyre and Sidon, though they are very wise. For Tyre has built herself a fortress and piled up silver like dust and gold like the mire of the streets. Now, that's ancient Tyre, by the way. It was ultimately defeated, and there was a first fulfillment of this. But we also know that Tyre is part of southern Lebanon, so keep that in mind, because it is Israel that's just recently invaded southern Lebanon, and going after Hezbollah.
Mm-hmm.
For Tyre built herself of a fortress. Let's go on to verse 4. Behold, Yahweh will dispossess her and cast her wealth into the sea, and she will be consumed with fire. That's been fulfilled. Ashkelon will see it and be afraid. Gaza too will writhe in great pain. Gaza too will writhe in great pain. Now, I want to say what's happened to Gaza in this last year. I mean, literally, the apartment buildings, the residential complexes, and the buildings of Gaza have been leveled, flattened to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Burned to the ground by fire.
yeah, Gaza too will writhe in great pain. Also, Ekron, for her expectation has been confounded. Moreover, the king will perish from Gaza. Well, who is the king that just died in Gaza? I don't. Eddie and Tammy, know his name. We talked about it on Let Us Reason. I just forget his name, but he was the leader of Hamas.
Yes.
He was the leader of Hamas, and he was killed 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And so it says here, moreover, the king will perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon will not be inhabited, and a mongrel race will dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. I will remove their blood from their mouth and their detestable things from between their teeth. Then they also will be a remnant before El, and be like a clan in Judah, and Ekron like a Jebusite. So here's a thought. What happened in 2005, I think it was, under Bush? Bush told Israel, get out of Gaza. And so what did Israel do? They forced the Jews that lived in the area of Gaza to leave, and they demolished their homes. They lost everything because of George Herbert Walker Bush.
Which we thought was good at the time.
Yeah, he was not a good man.
No.
And they gave Gaza completely over to the Palestinians, built a wall around it, and increased the divisions and the strife and the violence from that land. And so Israel right now has said, guess what? We're going back to pre-2005, and we're going to repopulate that area with Jews. We're going to rebuild it. And what's it say here in verse 7? And they will be, and the people that are there in that land, they will be like a remnant for our El, so our Elohim. So I perhaps am looking at it is that perhaps there's going to be a revival among the Palestinian people because they're going to be for Yahweh. I don't know, just a thought. It's prophetic. It's more to see. But here's the sad thing is that, and they will be like a clan in Judah, and Ekron like a Jebusite. Well, what was a Jebusite? The Jebusites were the ones who were in control of the area around Jerusalem. And they, through deception, said, look, ultimately they said, look, don't come in and destroy us. We're going to do this, that, and the other. And Israel did not destroy the Jebusites. But when they found out that what they were doing to deceive Israel, they made the Jebusites slaves. And so they became the servants of Israel. And so here we have this issue of, and like a clan, they'll be like a remnant for our Yah. This is verse 7, and be like a clan in Judah, and Ekron like a Jebusite. But I will camp around my house because of an army, because of him who passes by and returns, and no oppressor will pass over them anymore. For now I have seen with my eyes. So rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout in triumph, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you, and he is just and endowed with salvation, humble and mounted on a donkey, and even a colt, the foal of a donkey. And I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem, and the bow of war will be cut off, and he will speak peace to the nations, and his dominion will be from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. So again, there's parts in here partly fulfilled. Yeshua came riding on a foal of a donkey, right? Mm-hmm. But we have not seen Israel taking their position. And by the way, many people will disagree with me, but what happened in 1948 when Israel became a nation? The state of Israel became a nation because of negotiations that took decades to get there. The state of Israel was not born in a day. It took generations to get it to the point that finally, and that was also when they said the only way we're going to be able to do it to get the world's sympathy is by where we can kill off a bunch of people in World War II. And they got the world's sympathy, and finally they pushed through the state. This is by the hand and the force and the power of man that the state of Israel, not the nation of Israel, because the Bible is talking about the nation of Israel, not the state of Israel that we know today, that is occupied by one tribe,
But
Yehuda.
the Jewish people suffered unimaginable tortures because of all of that.
They did. And often and history has proven out, by their own people.
Over and over.
By their own people. And
they've been slaves.
So pawns, unfortunately, the average people like you and I have been pawns by the game players, the game makers, and have used them in order to force man's agenda. And then, well, we have to be careful of looking then what type of prophecy is true prophecy and which is a prophecy because of man's hand in it, not Yah's hand. Because Israel will be born in a day, but not the state in Israel today. It's a different place. It is a state. It is not the nation that we know that holds all 12 tribes. Right now, the nation of Israel is spread to the four corners of the earth until Yah brings them back once again. So I know that kind of rubs people the wrong way, but you have to look at it, and you have to look at it from true historical honesty, and not that which has been fed to us from a particular agenda. We have to be really careful about that. And so how does it all fit in today? I don't know. I'm always looking at it, and the Father's revealing so many different things. Prophecy is being fulfilled. This prophecy in Zechariah chapter 9 with the destruction of Gaza has been fulfilled and is in the process of being completely fulfilled right now. And the king of Gaza has been destroyed last week. So bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you. There's Kleenex.
So this is very interesting. That's a Zechariah connection to Genesis chapter 10. So let's go on. Let's look a little bit more about this connection of Nimrod now. Tells us that Nimrod began to be a mighty one of the earth. You know, that same word began is the same word that's used when Noah began to plant a vineyard. And so that the root of the word began is Strong's H2490, which is halal.
That was H1.
Come on.
H2490.
Yeah.
And so keep in mind, so Nimrod began, and the root of the word is halal, which means profane, bore to pieces, kill, wound, defile, pollute, or violate. So what's that tell us about Nimrod?
Messed up.
That he was a polluter.
Yes.
Because think about this. Nimrod was before the tower. It was Nimrod who built Babel and the Tower of Babel. He built the city, he built the tower, and y'all then struck mankind with different languages. So why? So that gives us a hint in terms of the Tower of Babel. What was the tower about?
Setting up, making themselves gods.
Defiling,
Yes.
polluting, violating
Yes.
the ways of Yah. I mean, what just happened?
That's why God
The
did that.
flood just happened. There was a purging and a cleansing on the earth. And here Nimrod comes in and starts to do the same thing over once again that destroyed the earth around the first time around. Noah began and planted a vineyard. Nimrod began to be a mighty one on the earth. So we've talked about that in the past, that maybe he got a hold of some fallen angel technology and changed his DNA, and he became a Nephilim. He became one whose DNA changed. He became a mighty one of the earth, a Gibberah. It's the same root where we get the word giant from. It says he was a mighty hunter. A mighty hunter. So he was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Or shall we say that he was a mighty hunter before Yahweh? Therefore, it said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter in the face of Yahweh. So, in other words, that's not a compliment. Nimrod, this hunter in the face of Yahweh. Now, I think it's very interesting in the King James Version where they put the grammar, the punctuation. It says that he was a mighty hunter before Yahweh, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh. And then this other connection with Esau. Okay. Esau, that word hunter is the word Sayid. Sayid. T-S-A-Y-I-D. T-S-A-Y-I-D. Sayid. Okay. It means hunter. It also means hunting game or prey. It's often translated as venison. It's H6718. H6718. And we get the same word Said also in reference to Esau in Genesis 25, 27 to 28. Now, so this is very important because now we have Nimrod, who is a hunter, and one of these first mentions of a hunter. We see, therefore, a connection with the first of this hunter with Esau. So if you'll jump over to Genesis 25, 27 through 28, if you want to look at it with me on it, this is where the punctuation is that I wanted to bring in to the conversation. And it reads, and the boys grew up, and Esau became a man knowing how to hunt, comma, a man of the field, comma, while Yaakov was a complete man, comma, dwelling in tents. And Yitzhak loved Esau because he ate of his wild game, but Rivkah loved Yaakov. Now, this word hunt and wild game also come from that word Said. But what's it say? And the boys grew up, and Esau became a man knowing how to hunt, comma, a man of the field, comma. But I want to say, remember in the Hebrew language, there's no commas. So it says, and the boys grew up, and Esau became a man knowing how to hunt a man of the field.
A man of the world.
A man of
that
the
wasn't
world.
Protected by Yah.
He became a manhunter.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Nimrod.
So yes, did he have skills? Could he go out there and hunt for deer, venison? Could he get the wild game that Esau liked? Yes, that's absolutely true. And yet, here on the other side, we also have the boys grew up, and Esau became a man knowing how to hunt a man in the field.
And he hunted
Well,
with a bow and arrow.
Nimrod was a mighty hunter. Now, of course, what we know about the history of Nimrod is that Nimrod was a mighty hunter because he was known to hunt men.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you a question. Was the goal of becoming a mighty hunter, Esau becoming a mighty hunter, was his goal ultimately to take down Nimrod?
And replace him with himself?
Say that again.
Was Esau's goal to become a hunter of men in order to get the skills to take down the hunter?
You said Esau instead of.
Yeah.
No,
Yes. Esau to take out
Nimrod.
the ultimate nemesis, Nimrod.
Yeah, well, I just missed that one in there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, considering that Nimrod began to be a mighty one of the earth, and the root of began is the word profane, bore to pieces, kill, wound, defile, and pollute and violate. So not only is he violating true faith, he's polluting faith, he's bringing mixture into faith, but ultimately he was a killer.
Mm-hmm.
Was Esau truly a killer? Is that why this threat of Jacob and Esau is even to the point when we talk about Esau kissing Jacob in the neck?
Fighting.
It was the rabbis say, then they use specifically in the two little points as fang mark, bite marks when Esau kisses Jacob.
Okay, with that question, let's go back to everything.
Jacob was afraid. In other words, Jacob was afraid of Esau because Jacob knew Esau's reputation.
I go back to what Waleed Shabbat said. It's always been one kingdom versus another kingdom. And it's always been about a fight for the land. It's always been about two kingdoms. One kingdom should be represented. We should look like Yeshua. We should walk in love, but what authority in his name and power and bring healing and salt and light. But the other kingdom is always going to be the opposite. So what if Yah's people, Shem or Yaakov, if they are men of the tents, they are men who carry on the word, they are men who love to sit at his feet, etc. What is the opposite of that? It's the world. It is somebody in the world. And just like we talked about earlier, when you're of the world, sin will bring in and breed. It just gets worse. It breeds its own kingdom. We're going back to that very same concept that we started out about talking. So was he a hunter of men? Well, let's bring it to today. Do we have people that are hunters
Yes.
of men
Yes.
and children
Especially in the league.
and women?
Yes.
In fact, is it
Government.
become normalized among the
Mhm.
elite, among those in power?
Mhm.
To stay in power, you hunt men. So if Esau was hunting to get in power, or Nimrod is hunting to stay in power. It's the same concept, and it is no different today. We think, oh my, a hunter of men. But people hunt for sport. People hunt for power.
Remember,
Life is nothing. People kill in the womb. It means life means nothing.
remember that when the Supreme Court Justice Rehnquist was killed over there in West Texas, over in
Yes.
outside in the
You mean
mountains,
murdered?
yeah. Near Alpine, Texas. And that lodge that he was at, there were a number of elite that were there, and the purpose of that lodge and the lands that are around it is for hunting. And they said it's not hunting for animals, that they bring
people
in and set them loose, and this is the game. The people are the game.
I've heard that from movies, television, and when they say that, they're doing it because man is much harder to hunt than an animal. So it's more sport, and there's no value for life. So should we be shocked that this could possibly have a connection with Esau as with Nimrod? No, because it's always a kingdom against kingdom issue. And that's why we need to make sure that's why you can't be hot. It's either hot or cold. And if you're warm, you're cold. You can't be both. We have to either be on fire for Yeshua, live like him, and try every day to make ourselves look more and more and act more and more like him. Though we fail, we brush ourselves off, we ask forgiveness, and we try to do it better the next time. But the other kingdom is going to be sharpening its tools: deception, murder, lies, hate, manipulation, witchcraft, occult. They're just as we should be sharpening our tools, they're sharpening theirs, because their father is the father of lies. And for them, what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right. And we have the truth, but in the number of them in that kingdom that are hunters of men, it may be greater than those who walk in Yah. But we go back to what we said even last week: greater is he who is in us. We've got to remember who backs us up. And I think of shows, or even the armies that we can't see. When Elisha's servant was out there, he couldn't see the armies that were there. And I think of, a situation where you see somebody there and it's a kid, and the bad guy runs away, but what he doesn't know is the Lion of Judah is behind him. And we forget who is behind us, who is in front of us, who shields us in according to his word. So yes, the hunters of men are out there, but you said one key word in there, that he was a hunter of men, the men in the field. What does the field represent? Those who are not following his word. That's why it's imperative that we do our very best to draw close to him and follow him every day. Again, there's nobody perfect. We're going to mess up, and we don't hold each other. Sandy, you messed up here. You're just terrible. You know what? I will, and I do mess up all the time, but I try to do better, right?
And we pray.
That's the key.
And we pray for each other, and we encourage one another.
And we cover, in this story, what did Ham do? Ham exposed his father, whereas Japheth and Shem covered his father's mistake or his whatever was going on. We're supposed to cover one another, not expose each other.
Even you think about killers out there, even in Colorado, there's range wars where they kill each other. I mean, there's people that get killed off in Washington. There's people that get killed off in California. We've heard too many things and seen too much. And, it's what y'all say about Hollywood. A lot of it they bring out in the movies, but it's not that. That's not where we get our information from. But I mean, this world is polluted.
So,
and it's iniquities passed down. It's the warring between Esau and Jacob that is passed down. And it's pretty sad. You got to stay hooked into
those
Yeshua.
storylines in Hollywood are often a revealing,
Yes.
in order to desensitize us when the truth is revealed. And So, and I had this thought, and we're going to move right on with this as well, because we're going to go a little bit more into Saeed and some of the meanings and connections that word gives us. That word Saeed, which means hunter. So, and this thought was in the hunting of men. When Andy knows this, when you go deer hunting, what do most deer hunters do to prepare long before the hunt? They set up the feeders. They set up feeders. I'm just saying, when they go man hunting, what do you do to make sure that the man doesn't get away? Is you set up feeders, you starve them, and you set up feeders so that they'll always be coming to get water and food.
But doesn't the government?
And then they set up on them to wait for them to approach.
Okay, so let's go with that, because we've been encouraged to get away from your farms, begin to go to the city, depend on the grocery store, and then above that, the government wants to take all your money. Then they'll redisperse the money as they see fit.
Set up feeders.
Get up, set you up on welfare and things like that, which is there. And by the way, if you're on it, there's a time and a place, and it does happen, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But that's my field where I used to work as a social worker, and you have generations that want that. But you hear people who say, I want the government to feed me. I want the government to care for me. I want the government to do it. They have set up feeders in order to entice you, so we become so dependent that we can no longer feed ourselves. I've heard about birds. If you start feeding birds, you keep feeding birds. Why? Because they become dependent on that food, and they no longer can hunt and grab what they, the worms, the bugs, ultimately, like they once did, because they become dependent on what's given to them. And that is why it's always better. You can give somebody a fish, but to teach them to fish is better, right? It's hard to struggle for what we have and to work hard. And sometimes there's not much there on your plate, so to speak, or you pay your bills and that's about all you can do. But yet that is still better than eating at the world's hand, the people in the field that have set up the feeders, not only for literal food, for assistance. We can go down the line. But we have
designed to keep you there for a reason.
They keep you there for a reason. But you look at the generations. Of course, many here are the baby boomers. We're the beginnings of Gen X. Yep. And then we have others that are here. But you look at the youngest of generations, probably from the millennials down, at least, maybe even before them. But I've heard many times that says, I want the government to pay for my school. I want the government to pay for this. I want my government to pay for that. I want the government to pay for that.
I had a student many years ago, 7th grader. She got pregnant. And she said, oh, it's okay. I'm just starting my career early. The more babies I have, the more money I get.
But see, this is the mentality that they've been taught. But it's also this, everybody owes me. Why should I have to work? It's too hard. Well, as far as I saw in the word, nobody ever retired. You just worked, and you worked until God was done with you, doing what you do. And to look at that, it's like, huh. But yet we've all been called for a purpose and things. But there's another thing that's trying to call us and lure us in, so that we stop providing for ourselves through Messiah, through Yeshua, so that we look for another source that's much easier, takes much less effort. You can sit around and watch TV or play video games or do whatever you want to do, and it's all right there at the hand, and it's so much better. That's what the world wants you to think. Those are feeders so that you can be killed.
And our country used to didn't be that way, and it's going downhill.
Well, isn't that what John Smith and all them, we go way back then? It's like the society, they initially set it up, and then a few people did most of the work, and others sat around and did nothing. And that's not the way society works. Everybody's got to pick up their part.
And you got to do that, and to think that and we need to overcome our circumstances in order to be to break away from that type of welfare mentality. We have to break from it. Otherwise, we've
got to
slaves.
teach our children and our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren,
Living's free.
to not listen
Yeah,
to
gotta
the
work.
lie and not be enticed by society. And the best way to do that is, number one, we set the example. Number two, we tell them, guys, you're falling into a trap. You're about to be hunted by manhunters, and you're easy prey if that is your source. If the world, the governments, the whatever is your source, you can.
So this,
Guys, I know there are exceptions to every rule. Okay, please understand. There are people, but there are also people disabled. There are things out there where there's the exception. But guys, as somebody who does and has worked in that field for over a decade, I can tell you right now,
there's abusers.
That's not.
They abuse the system.
The majority that's in the system is not that.
I would agree with that because I see it in the schools.
Yeah.
And in fact, the older people and things that are in the system, they get almost zero help whatsoever, and they need it the most. It's those other people, the young, the able-bodied, and all of that can really.
Your kids will come to school with the most expensive of cell phones and the most expensive shoes and the most expensive clothes.
At that point,
but they get free food, and their parents don't have to work.
So let's take this to the next step. And this is the word, we were talking about Saeed. Remember, that's the word for hunting or game, venison. Nimrod was a hunter, right? Esau was a hunter. That's the word Saeed. But the root of this is where it gets really interesting. The root of the word is the word tsud. So we were talking about Saeed, so tsud, and this is the Sade, Vav, Dalet.
Sadi, yeah.
Okay. So if you're phonetically spelled a transliteration, it would be TSUWD. TSUWD, transliterated. So this is the word which means to hunt or take provision. But let's get into a little bit more. The primitive root means to lie alongside, that is in wait, to wait. But the implication is to catch an animal. So you lie in wait. So when you set up a feeder, then you have a blind, and behind the blind, you wait for the animal to come on their schedule. That's why you have trail cameras. So you know what time of day they're always passing by. You set up the blind, and then you wait for them to arrive. I think it's for the hunting of deer or the hunting of man. You just set it up. You know what the patterns are. You watch those things. You lie in wait. So the word tsud is this very interesting thing. It has to do as well as to chase and to hunt. It's very active. It has a value of 100. Now we talk about gematria, the value of the Hebrew letters equal a certain number, and then those numbers connect us to other parallel thoughts. And so this number 100 is associated with the letter Kuf, right? So one of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet is the word Kuf. It's the paleo. Kuf is like a circle with a line down through the middle of it. Turn it sideways. You have a horizon with the sun partially seen or observed. It's like above and below the horizon. That's the paleo Hebrew look of the letter Kuf. It's the sun on the horizon. In other words, the light is split in half. Part of it's like dawn, where light is coming out of darkness, or sunset, where light is being absorbed into darkness. Twilight. And if you take that kuf and you add, so once you get that root, and the word kuf is speaking about the letter. There's not I could not find what kuf means. Somebody might be able to find that for me. But if you add dalet, if you add the dalet to it, you get the word kfada. kvadah. Kvadah. That word kvadah. So now, so it gives us an implication. So we have now, what did I do? I took sud, got the value of 100, which took us to the letter kaf or kuf, which now you look up a word and you say, well, let's do a little variation of that word, kuf, and add the dalet to it. Now we have something else that's kind of connecting the dots. That word kvadah means shrinking or terror, or shrinking terror. Shrinking terror. Now, what was one of the names of the sons? Ham, one of the grandsons, was Het, or Heth, right? Heth is the sons of Canaan, is Heth. What's Heth mean? Terror. Terror. Now we're kind of coming back around full circle, or we have a sun on the horizon, coming back around full circle. Okay, so sugar, no. Okay, we have kvadah, shrink terror. Another related word is kvad, kvad. That's the root of kvadah is kvad. It means shuddering anguish or terror.
And that's a lot of
Now, why am I talking about this? Is because we're talking about this hunter or being hunted. How does darkness rule over its subjects?
Fear.
By fear. What is it right now that when the jab thing all came along, everybody better get the jab, better do that because you might die. You might infect your loved ones. You're not going to see your loved ones. You're going to miss out on birthday parties and anniversaries, and you won't be able to travel or get on an airplane, and your lifestyle is going to be shifted. So you better get the jab, right? That was the rule of, that you're in a society driven by terrorism, by what they tell their people.
They've already got another one they've come up with now that's going to kill everybody.
So kvad, it's the kuf pei dalet. That's the root of kvadah, shrinking terror. Kvad is shuddering, anguish, terror. That's where they want us to live. They want us to live in that place. What did Nimrod do? He was a mighty hunter. What did people do? They were concerned that if they crossed him, that they would be subject to being killed by him. Mm-hmm. And Esau came running home after he killed Nimrod. Why? Because he's like, I'm so hungry. I'm famished now. I need something to eat because my life is about ready to be wiped out. Even the remnants of Nimrod's followers, he was afraid of because he killed Nimrod. And so he was afraid he was going to die. So now we get another connection. Remember, we talked about kuf having the value of 100, which is the same value of tsud, which means to hunt. Then, well, kavad, the kuf, pei, dalet, value of 184. Well, guess what? Yahweh wants to bring us out of fear because it's associated and connected with the value of 184, which is Yaakov. Because Ekev, where we get the word Yaakov from, is heel. It connects us with Jacob. Now it's also 184 is connected with the word yoke, deliver, and cry. Now we have Exodus language because now we can either be under the yoke of Nimrod, the yoke of Egypt, the yoke of darkness, the yoke of terror, or Yeshua said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Mm-hmm. And we can be delivered by the Redeemer who has come to set us free and bring us out of the rule of terror, the rule of tyranny, the rule of being dominated, and be delivered. How are we going to be delivered? It's because we cry out, Za'ak. It has the value of 184, just like the word deliver, which is chalatz, which means delivered, and samed is yoke. Those are all Hebrew words with a value of 184, which connects us together with being delivered out of the reign of terror. Yeah, which Nimrod is still ruling and reigning in the earth. In fact, they want to resurrect Nimrod. They want to restore Nimrod from the grave. And that's what we know about when they raided the grave of Nimrod and what they brought his bones out to get his DNA. First Tammy and then Joy.
It took a while to find it.
Yeah?
But Cove, actually, instead of Cove, it's Cove,
Uh-huh.
means monkey or ape.
Monkey, ape. Isn't that something?
That's the closest I could find.
Is it close to okay?
Because their nature is that, okay?
I wouldn't go with so much as the nature as in terms of the characteristics of an ape is foreboding.
Yes.
And so you don't want to mess with a gorilla, right?
Gorillas, well, any of the monkeys.
Any of them, yeah. Even chimpanzees, as they get old, they get very violent, and you don't want an older chimpanzee in your house. And by chimpanzees like to smoke cigarettes. Just so you know.
Only because
Okay,
they're
we're gonna get on
mimicking
that
something
rabbit trail.
else.
No, I'm serious. So there were chimpanzees
Is
at
it really?
at a hotel when we were in the Ivory Coast, and we went to a hotel.
How did they pay with the MasterCard or Visa?
They get this. They picked up cigarette butts off the ground,
Because they've watched men do it.
and then if you give them a light, they'll smoke it. But not only that, they'll chain smoke. They'll pick up other cigarette butts and light them from the lit cigarette butt, and they'll light it and chain smoke. Yeah, see,
There's
totally
a
wild.
lady that actually taught an ape sign language, and he could talk back and forth to people.
So another connection with that one letter, that number one. Oh, I'm sorry, Joy, you had something. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say what you're talking about reminds me of these days and the days really to come, as far as the mark of the beast. People will read that and I think they get fear, because how are we going to take care of ourselves? Ultimately we have to decide: do we love our bodies enough to lose them for the Father, right? So we have to have that in our head, that we are not going to renounce Yeshua, that we are not going to take part of this thing. It's the same thing, that fear, anyway, I had it in my head a minute ago. So, you know what I'm saying? I think what you're talking about is what we're going through right now. Everything you hear is fear, Oh my goodness, you better be prepared, and yada yada yada, in which we do. But that sometimes the way I look at it anyway, I'm like, oh my goodness, I am not prepared. And you start getting that fear, and so you just have to take a step back and say, who is my provider?
Yeah.
I can, but if there's no finances there, then he is going to take care of that.
He's going to have
Whether
to,
he
yes.
takes me sooner than that, I have to go through that or whatever, But it just comes to that thing: be strong and stand strong, and to the end, so that you can stand in front of the Father and say, "Look, I went through this, because of you," or whatever. That person.
Well, and that's the one thing about the Mormons, and I've got parts of their books. They are preppers.
Yeah, they are.
And at one time, they were required by church doctrine to have 7 years worth of food.
Wow.
So this 100. So understanding now. Remember, in the Hebrew language, you can have words that have a positive connotation, and then there's also the opposite that goes on. And so remember the word sud, which is related to hunt. There's another word that has the same value. And this is also kind of, because this whole idea of Nimrod connects us with the Antichrist system and culture, which is to destroy the people. It is to bring down the people, and it's rules by a rule of terror. And remember, what was the culture of Israel when they were enslaved in Egypt? How were they enslaved? Because they were burdened, and they were taxed in the form of forced labor. That was their tax against them.
Tax masters.
So they had to pay tribute to their masters by their labor. That's what American culture is. Western culture is that they keep us. They did you notice that in the last 2 years our electric bills doubled?
Yep.
Why do you do that? You double the bills Because when people start to have a little bit of room and wiggle room to be able to put a new windshield in the car, take care of some other needs or the family or whatever,
Right.
and then they say, no, we're going to hold you keep you in a certain position.
Yes.
So we're going to hit you one way or another. We're either going to inflate and bring inflation, so we're going to water down the money supply so that everything costs more, or we're going to raise things. We're going to force you to use utilities and not let you have your own utilities, produce your own energy. We're going to make you have our energy, and then we're going to cause those prices to increase. Our utilities in this house doubled. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't know if you like $300, $400 utility bills, electric bills, let alone our gas bills have increased.
And we don't even use it. We use it on Shabbat for you guys, but we don't.
On the other side of town,
So
mine are three and 400 between that range.
yeah,
So I know
Yeah.
exactly. And my house is not near as big as this one.
yeah. So the MOS, that's the word. That's H4522. That has the value of 100. It means properly a burden, causing to faint. In other words, people even just fainting for the burden, they're just worn out, not really. And that is the purpose of that government. Another H4523 is also MOS, which means is afflicted, also fainting. And so that was some of my notes that I lost earlier when I but there's some other things. Nehema means disquietness, roaring, and act treacherously. Nechal, beguile, conspire, deceiver, deal subtly. That's how we've been dealt with our government. And why? It is not because they're stupid. It's because they have contrived plans that we'd say that's just not common sense. How many years have we said the government doing the things the way they do it is just not common sense? Because it's not meant to be common sense. It's meant for evil against the people, to continue to enslave us, right? And so there's a lot more with this. It is to, but I want to bring you on the good side of these things with the value of 100, because our king is coming. My Melech, my king, Melchi, my king is 100. The king of Israel, Melech Israel is 100. And Yahweh shall be king is 100. My servant David, Avdi David, right hand, Yomin, is 100. Above or upon, El is 100. Kaf, the palm of the hand, is 100. Wise-hearted, Hokav, is 100, a wise man's heart. So what do? We take wisdom by studying Torah. We take wisdom to finding the solutions. We define the answers so that we can come out of the realm of the deceiver that's trying to hold us down and hold us back, so that we can be calm in the midst of understanding the ways of the deceiver, because knowing the ways of the deceiver allows us to plan and to prepare and to come out of, instead of from, and come out from underneath to rise up upon. This is why it's so important that if you is to learn skills for survival, learn skills that you can, skills that people need. What do people need? People need us to have skills, because they're going to need plumbers and electricians and welders and gardeners and cooks and weavers and sewers and what type of trade, what do we have, what knowledge can we provide so that we are considered valuable to our community, that we can bring to the table. And that's wisdom, and out of that makes us beautiful, and that is another word, beauty. It is the letter Pei, is translated into the word beauty. So there's more to it. Yoke is connected, and understand that the deceiver is also 100. So we need to know: are we going to come under the power of the King, our King, the Most High, or allow us to come under the power of Nimrod, who is the one who is by violence trying to rule and reign over us? So
he's under my feet.
that's how I'm going to there's so much more on this. Maybe we'll have to continue on during the message part of today's encounter service. I don't know. Hopefully, I got you. I hope y'all got something out of it. Did you have something? I'm sorry, where I didn't know if you were raising your hand. Oh, you.
I'm putting pieces together as we're talking about all of this.
Yeah.
One of the things that you brought up about, the slave labor and everything. And that was actually brought up at a city council meeting because they are pushing this Agenda 21, or Agenda 2030,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which has to do with 15-minute cities.
Yeah.
And we will all be, and Amarillo is pushing real hard for it.
Mm.
What's a 15-minute city name?
That
You're
means
not allowed
you can't go with the outside that 15-minute radius from your house.
And
They're
you're
trying to push that in now.
you're
Yes,
digital.
That was actually on the voting registration thing, that, it said, vote against, what was it, probably, anyway, it had to do, it was about, it says, don't support the travel ban. And that's what this is
The
about.
travel ban was supposed to be
Yeah, I haven't got
Friday.
there yet.
But anyway, whenever you go to
Two
the
different
city
things,
council
two different
meeting, you
subjects.
start putting pieces together, and I'm also all
Wow.
putting things together as well. What we were talking about, Nimrod, being a mighty hunter, of the people and everything. Well, this spirit has continued. I mean, I've done research way on back, but whenever they're talking, this explains to me why they are letting all these so-called criminals into our country and just, dropping them in different areas, because these people, this is the way that they believe, and this supports their theory, as far as hunting people. We have got a huge problem.
Yes.
As far as human
And they're gonna rise up.
trafficking.
And
They're
that's
gonna pop
which
out
is, by the
eventually.
way, that's what Proposition A is about. It's about stopping human trafficking, by stopping the human trafficking of the unborn through the city of Amarillo, and let alone to shut down industries like what we have out here at Bio, whatever it is, out there on Highway 60, where they're bringing in aborted babies to destroy the bodies here.
Yes.
So yeah, which is the Proposition A, but there's number 8. You said number 8
So
is
there's A, B, C, and D.
yeah. So stopping,
Propositions.
because the other thing with the 15-minute cities is that you can't go outside. Your money won't work outside your area because they're going to make it a
Wow.
digital money, and then
Wow.
they'll cut you off. You got to go
You
home.
can't go see family in another town.
They have been pushing this issue for a very long time because it's all about tracking. They want to know where you are.
Mhm.
There will be no people living outside in the countries if they have their way completely.
That's probably true, yeah.
They
And
want to cram us
well,
all
no,
together
we're
in these 15-minute cities. And they, I don't know if you guys have ever watched movies like Mockingjay or anything like
Yes,
that.
yes,
But that has absolutely everything to do with what we're talking about right now.
yeah.
If you haven't watched it, you need to look at
There's
it.
another one called Out of Time. It's the same thing. Justin Timberlake.
Yeah. So it's
I mean,
it's to
I've seen that.
desensitize us.
Oh my gosh.
It is
Yeah,
actually
it shows
desensitizing
about
us.
these things, but yeah.
So when those things start to happen, it's like we feel like we've already been there. So it doesn't impact us in our face when it actually starts being rolled out. And then we realize, oh, I'm caught up in the middle of the Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games, now watch them, is it kind of like that? Yeah.
Well, I
Oh,
think
yeah,
it's
that's-
also, I think it's also like Divergent.
Divergent.
Yeah, exactly.
Separating
If you-
people into groups, into clans.
But y'all have got an army in the United States, and they just haven't popped their little heads out. It's gonna happen.
Well,
So-
it's
Those
happening
folks are
already.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes.
People disappear all the time. And I'm not talking about, just abortion, okay? We're talking about little kids. I mean, if
Yes.
you've ever looked
They
into
never
this
find
human
them. It's like
trafficking
they never
thing,
find them.
a lot of these little kids, that's exactly what they're being taken for,
Mhm.
is forced sacrifice. Yes, I mean.
Just
the-
like
the
in
Illuminati-
Germany, they raised them up, the kids,
Yes,
to be the leaders and to fight the fights and be at their agenda.
they
Okay.
literally will take a brand new baby that's like maybe 2 or 3 months old, and part of their ritual, and they do this in Hollywood, okay? They will call it the golden liquid or the golden elixir or whatever.
We're going to stop the broadcast right now, and so that we can preserve our channel. So those are joining us online, thank you for being part. And just a reminder, you can go to our website at www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org, and where you can click on the donate button and or the tab, and it'll open up a screen screen that'll bring up a donate button, and you can go online and give that way, or you can get our address or mailing address and mail an offering or a tithe, however you want to give, and bring it this way. We certainly appreciate that. That helps us continue to meet the different needs of this ministry. And with that said, Shabbat Shalom. We'll see everybody back at 3 p.m. Central Time here for our encounter service. So until then,